Okay. Good afternoon. How are you doing? I can't hear you. Okay. How many of you are sleepy? Okay. I hope I don't make you sleepy in my talk. How many of you are very happy? Okay. And how many of you are sad? Okay, yeah, sometimes we get sad. Yes. Anyway, glad to be here. I was here 4 years ago, but they just confined me to downstairs. Never brought me up here. So I didn't realize what a great, beautiful and spacious hondo you have here. Yeah. And I can sense, I understand that this reflects Reverend Arthur Takimoto. How many of you knew him? Okay, well, we have, about 25% of you who knew him. And being here, I kind of feel his presence in that he was such a dynamic speaker, caring person, energetic person. And I remember when I was, my first airplane ride was in high school. And that's when I was in Mountain View Temple, I was YBA, a person, and was sent to a gathering at West LA where he was a speaker. And when I first flight to LA, I was a little nervous and got off and heard him speak, and I said, wow, he was so energetic and so thoughtful, and just his voice is booming, and I received so much inspiration, especially because our minister was Japanese speaking, and here, a speaker who spoke English perfectly and had a lot to say. Anyway, today is O-Higan, and at Orange County they give me about 25 minutes, and when I spoke to some people here, he says, you can speak as long as you want. And she's shaking her head. Well, who knows, it may be shorter. But yeah, okay, so I'll keep it a little bit longer than, but we have some children. But I'm going to tell basically stories, so it shouldn't be too rough on you. I know talks are better, shorter the better, but we have to make a point. We have to convey a message that you can hopefully understand and apply to your lives. Okay, for O-Higan, and we just heard from the moderator that Higan means the other side. O is honorific, the honorable other shore. But as the moderator said, that it's not a place that you go to, but it's more of a change of heart. Change the mind from thinking more, self-centeredly to thinking more of the others. Change is the essence of Buddhism. Buddhism is a religion of change and transformation. So now I will tell you a famous American joke. A hot dog and a monk in a hot dog. Have you heard that one? No, nobody except Reverend Turner, because he heard it yesterday. Okay, here's this monk who wanted a hot dog, and he goes to a hot dog vendor, and the vendor says, "Sir, what would you like?" And the monk said, "Make me one with everything." Well, I will explain this one. It's kind of a chore explaining jokes, but because only 35% of you laughed. Well, anyway, so make me one hot dog with everything on it. Mustard, diced onion, sauerkraut. Everything on it. That's the conventional meaning. The other meaning is make me one with everything, the universe and the nature and one with all, the spiritual and kind of spiritual experience. So did you get that one? Okay. When you explain, it's not too fun. But the second part is easier. He gives him $20, doesn't get the change back, okay? But he's waiting. He can't, really, he's a monk, right? He has to be calm and collected. But after 3 minutes, even a monk, he gets a little irritated if he doesn't get his change back. Give him $20 after all. Hot dog is only like, $7 now these days. Okay, so he says, where is my change? And the vendor says, sir, the change must come from within you. It's great, and I love this joke, change. And change, so we have to, on O-Higan, we have to change the way we normally think about things. So normally we think in terms of this shore, but the other shore. So 6 paramitas, or six perfections, are practiced, especially in our Jodo Shinshu tradition during the O-Higan time. Why? Because the weather is great. Actually, weather is really nice. I live in Tokyo, Japan. Right now, it's really hot and muggy. And so whenever I come back to California, I feel like, gee, you guys all live this is a pure land, in terms of weather. Not too hot, not too cold. Maybe it's a little hot recently, but not really hot like Japan. So you should feel, I feel that every time I come back to California, I said, there are issues about California, but the weather is great. And then the reason why I kind of said it's like the Pure Land. The Pure Land is described as, weather is not too hot, not too cold. So please appreciate the great weather you have here. So anyway, during O-Higan, we practice these 6 paramitas, or perfection. And I just want to, speak a little bit about dana. Dana is selfless giving, okay? So normally when we say dana, we think of, giving money. And please continue to do that for the temple. But there are other givings that you can do through action. And they call it 7 non-material giving. And you can do through your behavior. You can give to others through your behavior. Nice smile, kind words, and nice gaze. So there are 7 of them. So gaze, words, bodily giving. So if you see an elderly person carrying a heavy luggage, and you offer to help out. So so selfless giving is not just material and money, but how you act for the benefit of others. Second one that I want to kind of talk about, which I want to talk mostly today, is last one, prajna, or insight, or wisdom. And so Buddhism is a religion that emphasizes wisdom to see things in a true way. And so, my talks, my stories that I want to share with you will try to back that up. And as I do that, I want to talk about 3 principles at O-Higan and 3 principles of insight. And insight is basically, what is really important, what is true. And so I would say, I feel deeply that having studied Buddhism for all my life, that it comes down to 3 things. One is love or compassion. Okay, first one. Second one is equality. And the third one is interconnectedness, or oneness, or togetherness. These 3 qualities, well, the first one is how we treat others with love and compassion. Second one is treating people equally. It's not to say that everyone is equal, because we're all different. We all have our uniquenesses. But we treat others equally. This is, again, love and equality are nothing really radical, because in our American culture we emphasize especially like equality. But actually Buddhism, much earlier, 2,500 years ago, has stressed equality. And so it's very much part of our tradition. It's not easy to really treat everybody equally. And sometimes we find that we have our prejudices. But knowing our prejudices, then we still aspire to do better. And that's the essence of paramita. We try to perfect ourselves. Even though we see our failings and shortcomings, we try to do better. Last one is togetherness, or oneness, or interconnectedness. And so those three things, if you can just kind of note in your mind, love and compassion, equality, and togetherness, oneness, that we are connected. We are truly connected. That's why I'm a little concerned and with the tenor of the political discussion, where people are trying to divide us, and I don't think seems to, for me, I feel strongly that it goes against the Buddhist principles. Okay, now a little bit the stories. Can we put the, yeah. Okay, there, cats, okay. These are my cats. But actually, they're not really mine. They're feral cats. And since my kids, when they were little in Japan, they gave me all Japanese names. But this is Mike. This is Chako. This is Yuko. These two are brother, male, female. They're brother, sister. And then this is Chako's daughter, Yuko. So I'm going to tell a story about them and also have a message for O-Higan. So anyway, 10 years ago, in our house in Tokyo, next door, a litter of kittens were born. And these two, Mike and Chako, were one of, I think, about 7. Okay, and but the neighbor hardly ever comes to the backyard. So I feel obligated, and I wanted to do something, because otherwise they wouldn't be fed. And so I began to feed them. But if you keep feeding them, they start growing, more, and it's not good for the neighborhood, and it's not good for the kittens. So I had them, fixed, and that in itself is very interesting. I don't want to go into real detail, but what I did is I had to capture them in cages. I had to go borrow the cages, and how do you catch them? Well, what I did is not feed them for about 2 days, and then got a little dry fish, put the soy sauce and sugar, and they, actually they smell really good, and I tried some, it tasted really good. And for the cats, even more so. So they hadn't been fed for 2 days, so 3 cages. Right away, I caught 3 of them. Take them to the vet, and bring them back, and then 3 more cats. So one by one, I caught all, actually 9 of them, probably 7 of ours, and 2 others who are not really there. And so I remember one of the cats who wasn't really of this group looking at me and saying, "How come I'm in there?" Well, anyway, so 9 of them, I guess, ultimately. Well, 8 or 9, I kind of forgot. But anyway, so right now we only have 3 left. Actually, I'm really sad to say Chaco, this one, whose email is named after her, this one, she stopped coming this beginning of this year. So we're afraid that she's gone. But she was with us, for 10 years. So so now it's become a neighborhood endeavor to feed these cats. And so even when we come back to California for over a month, our neighbors are feeding them. So it's really nice, and they're around, and it's good to see them when we go in and out the door. Anyway, so as you know, feral cats will not allow you to pet them because they're already kind of instinctually they just run away. So even though they won't let me pet them, I feed them every day, but they never thank me. They're never grateful, in the sense that they don't let me pet them. But even then, one thing I learned, one time, these cats stopped coming. And for one reason or another, and then I realized that I was sad, So in other words, I felt like I was, Dana, I was giving, but I was expecting things in return, But I realized that I was getting something by giving. And when I lost the object of giving, then I became sad. So that was a learning experience for me. Related to that is one time they stopped coming for a specific reason. There was another cat, a much bigger cat, feral cat, stray cat, with a big black spot on his nose, so we used to call him Black Nose. And he would come and chase away our cats because he's much bigger. And so I began to get upset at the Black Nose, and but somehow he comes and he eats whatever we give them and leaves enough for our cats, or Tanaka cats, my cats. But somehow he brought, actually sometimes with another cat of his friend, so they eat all the food that we provide. So one day I got just upset and I ran outside, on the way grabbed the slipper and ready to throw at the Black Nose and his companion. Then I heard a little voice. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing. Have you heard that? The golden chain, right? I profess to treat all beings same, equally, be kind to all beings, but here I am. I'm really getting angry at Black Nose and his friend. Why? Because I am not treating them equally. I am discriminating. I'm saying my cats and other cats. But when you really think about it, they're all stray cats, right? And just because I got to know them first, they're my cats, Tanaka cats, and these are non-Tanaka cats. So us and them, that's kind of, discriminating and separating. So contrary to what we profess, I will be kind and gentle to all living beings. But here I am. So I dropped my slipper and had to have deep time for reflection. So that's and you may be saying, oh, that's terrible, and I felt it's terrible too. But we, especially in Jodo Shinshu, Shin Buddhism, where we try to reflect on our attitudes. And if you do so, we say we should treat all beings equally, but we all have our level of prejudice, likes and dislikes. And so it's important for us to know that. That's the weakness and the shortcomings that we all have. But Jodo Shinshu, we say, that's the way we are, so we're kind of allow space to acknowledge that and not feel really guilty about it, but because of that, I try better next time, improve. So if you're always told you gotta be a good person all the time, and if you're not, you are a sinner or something like that, then when you commit something that is contrary to the teaching, you feel like, oh, I'm a bad person, I don't want to try harder. But I think with a Shin approach that we're all have these shortcomings. And then we have a room in our heart to say, oh, you're not bad, you're not evil, you just have to try harder. And so, that's the lesson. The one last message is this one. This Mike, the yellow one, he's probably the one that comes most consistently now. As I said, he doesn't allow me to pet him. All this year, 10 years, Well, now it's 10 years, but actually 6 years ago, until then, he had never allowed me to pet, But one day, about 400 yards away from my house, in a different part of the neighborhood, I saw Mike. And I said, oh, Mike, he's hanging out around here. And then he seemed different. He came this way, he didn't run away. And he meowed. And I said, oh, that's strange. And then he kept coming. And he came right up to where I was standing, and he wouldn't run away. I mean, that in itself was strange. Usually he just runs away. So I said, oh, maybe I can pet him. My dream. And I pet him, and he just lay, on his side, and allow him to pet him more. I was so surprised. I mean, just a totally different cat, different being. Is this possible? If anyone knows more about cats, please let me know why this happens. And I've been asking why, and then someone said, maybe because, you caught him, put him in a cage, and took him into a doctor. Maybe he has, PTSD. And that may be true. So when he comes near my house, he has that bad experience. Even though he gets fed. But that may be getting in the way. But he was totally different. So, this is another message which I feel applies to us humans, that we think we know someone, but there are dimensions of them that we don't know. So we have to have an open heart, open mind about certain people. And, if you don't know them really well, that person we judge by our limited experience, and we don't, be open enough for the other possibilities. So in Buddhism we say, open mind, change, as we said. So have our mind open, and so it's like, mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's opened. Isn't that good? I learned this when I was a minister. Actually, one of the members told me this, and I've been kind of thinking about this. Speaking of parachute, closed parachute, not good, right? If the parachute doesn't open up. So I just remembered a story that I didn't tell at OCBC. They actually missed out on a good joke. I hope you laugh on. Okay, there was this Jodo Shinshu Jodo Shinshu member, follower, and he wanted to be, ever since he was young, he wanted to be in a paratrooper, join a paratroop and jump off the airplane. So he joined, he got his wish, and then he's getting all this training, and the sergeant is telling him how to fold the parachute. Then all of a sudden he starts wondering, what if it doesn't open, Sarge? And the Sarge says, don't worry, it always opens, but just in case you have a spare. And the Sarge told him about the spare, and so he was much relieved. Finally, he has a chance, a day comes when he jumps off the airplane for the first time. But he gets cold feet. And he says, well, maybe not, But the sergeant just pushes him off. He's, really high up there, and he's falling through the air, and time comes for him to pull the the cord. So he pulls it, and it doesn't open. So it's getting frantic. It's going like this, and it doesn't open. He said, oh yeah, the spare. So he pulls that one, and that doesn't open. And he says, oh no. And he's Joro Shinshu, so he says, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. And the golden hands of Amida come and catches him. And then he says, thank God. And the golden hands of Amida opens up. Okay. Well, you're supposed to laugh more, but actually, okay, you gotta hear me out till the very end. The joke, the Amida opened his hand like that, but truly, that Amida doesn't do that. Even if he said, thank God, it doesn't matter, you know. So this joke, I don't know who started this, but he or she really didn't fully understand the nature of Amida Buddha. Whoever you are, whatever you are, how limited you are, even if you thank, you know, another God, he, Amida, doesn't care. And so he caught him and brought him down to the ground. Da-da-da-dum. Okay, so I took up quite a bit of time for this, so, okay, but anyway, the point, please remember the point, okay? We have to have an open heart, open mind to see things. Don't always look from your own limited perspective, even though we all have our biases, okay? But, so acknowledge your bias. And so it's a constant struggle. Your limitations, biases, but you keep trying to practice the paramitas. So that continues for the rest of our lives, you know? Because we're all ordinary foolish beings. But that's okay. Okay, so here goes another a story, and this is, where is it? So maybe, oh, there you go. Okay, this is written by a story about a bluebird, okay? When the bluebird sings, and it has a pretty nice message. And I'll try to go a little faster than normal, but okay. It's not, am I pressing the right? Okay. So, deep in the forest, there lived a beautiful bluebird. The bluebird was very proud of its own beauty. When flying through the forest, everyone would say, over there, it's that bluebird. How beautiful it is, as they let out an envious sigh. So he was a good-looking bird. Okay? And the others said, hey, bluebird, why don't you come and join us and sing with us? His friends called out to him one day, but the bluebird frantically flew away. What's with him? He's always like that, like this. Fine, let's just forget about him and sing just amongst ourselves. So always being this way, no one has ever heard the bluebird sing. And, oh, okay, first one, go back. And there's bluebird. What is he doing? How is he? He's crying. Why is he crying? At this as the singing of his friends could be heard alone at home, the bluebird quietly let out a sigh. Oh, how I wish I could sing with my friends. But unlike his appearance, his voice was raspy and unpleasant. So he looked good, but he felt that his voice was terrible. Since then, the bluebird quietly goes up. Okay, I think maybe I skipped a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Okay, then good, sorry. Since then, the bluebird quietly goes out at dusk, so he wouldn't be seen by his friends. Then one day, he heard Bupposo, Bupposo. That is in Japanese, it's Buddha Dharma Sangha. A bird is singing Buddha Dharma Sangha. Out of nowhere, a beautiful voice singing Bupposo was heard. What a beautiful voice. The bluebird, in search of the owner of the beautiful voice, searched the forest. Bupposo, Bupposo, Buddha Dharma Sangha. But of course, that voice was also heard by the bluebird's friends in the forest. Bupposo. Because the bluebird was always flying when the beautiful voice was heard, his friends thought that it was the bluebird's voice. Okay? Next. One day the bluebird once again went out in search of the voice. Just then his friends called out, "Hey, bluebird, you sure sing with an amazing voice. We heard you. It was a great voice. We could..." Grateful. Oh, thank you. Okay. Grateful voice. Yeah. Okay. We could hear Bupposo. It's so lovely, as they flew by. So his friends all thought Bupposo belonged to the bluebird. Okay. And then there he is. Oh no! Why? Because bluebird thought, "Oh no," thought the bluebird. "What shall I do? That's not me. That isn't my voice." That voice could be heard from far away, far, far away. The bluebird quickly flew in the direction of the voice. Quietly at dusk, the bluebird would go out in search of the voice. Seeing the bluebird flying about, his friends began calling him Bupposo. The bluebird did not feel bad, as he thought to himself, though that's not true. You see, he feels good because they think it's his voice, but he knows it's not him. Okay? But feeling embarrassed, it became all the more difficult for the bluebird to go out, that he would go out searching for the owner of the voice only after his friends were fast asleep. It also seemed that the voice could be better heard at night. Okay? Here, Bupposo, Bupposo. Next. And he says, I found it. Finally, the bluebird found the owner of the voice. It was none other than a big Japanese scops owl. In a raspy voice, the bluebird called out to the scops owl, "Excuse me." And the scops owl turned around with a gentle look. Okay? As their eyes met, the bluebird immediately felt happy, yet ashamed and disappointed in himself, and began to cry. The bluebird could not stop crying. Loudly he cried, the bluebird. The scops owl gently watched over the crying bluebird. Crying, the bluebird said, with such an ugly voice as mine, I cannot sing with everyone. My friends are mistaken, thinking that your beautiful voice belongs to me, when my voice is actually this ugly. But here I am, unable to say so. Gently bringing the crying bluebird to his side, in a firm yet beautifully clear voice, the scops owl said, "Just as you are. It is fine, just as you are." I have heard about you, Buposo. What a nice name. And your voice also comforts those who hear it, and it is a very wonderful voice. And that cannot be, said the bluebird, gazing up at the scapsao in surprise. Buposo, now listen carefully. I can only fly at night, after dark. That is why I would be happy if you would fly during the day. Everyone is happy with you just flying. Buposo cried and cried. Buposo was overjoyed and happy for being forgiven and saved. Okay, it's the same one, so you can. Since then, Buposo would fly all day from tree to tree, forest to forest. Then at night, he would always go to the scapsao side and listen to his stories and sharing the stories with his friends. The next day became and sharing the stories with his friends the next day became a part of his daily routine. That voice was happy one that everyone was thankful for and sharing and joy. With his friends, Buposo came to enjoy being able to sing together with them. Not one of his friends said that Buposo's voice was ugly. So all this time he thought his voice was ugly. But people didn't think so. That his friends didn't think so. Okay? And to this day, the voice of Buposo can be heard every evening, quietly, deep in the forest. The end. Okay, so how did you like it? It's a story that was written by a wife of a minister, a Shin minister, who is now, working in Brazil. And she wrote this, and she asked me to write a little foreword on the front part. So I endorsed it because I felt that it really reflected the essence of Buddhism, and especially Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. And I say especially Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. What messages did you pick up? Okay, I can think of at least two. One is that, earlier I mentioned how we all want to be fair, we want to treat people equally, but we have our shortcomings. We have our prejudices and likes and dislikes. The time, when I was getting angry at the black nose, okay? But when he learned that the other birds were mistaking that the beautiful voice was his, he could have just said, you're wrong, that's not me. But what did he do? He kind of liked the fact that, people, his friends thought his voice was good, so he didn't honestly admit it. And that made him even guilty, okay? Okay, that's the first one. So that's one, okay? And the fact that we all have that kind of tendency. We should do this, but we sometimes cannot or we don't want to. But the point is to see it. Awareness means not seeing truth out there, but also truth about who you are and how you are. Secondly, he thought that his voice was poor, unpleasant. And we all have that, don't we? We have something about ourselves, our maybe physical makeup or, personality or, intelligence, and feel like, oh, I'm not quite up there and I feel inferior compared to them. But sometimes we think too much. We kind of are harder on ourselves because he found out that his friends didn't think his voice was unpleasant. Even the owl said, you have a wonderful voice. So, don't be too hard on yourself and, reach out and things can be very different. The other, probably the other important thing is the owl, the Scops owl. Who do you think the Scops owl represents in our teaching? What does he symbolize, or who does he symbolize? The owl. And remember, he accepted him, the bluebird, as he is, even if he was not honest with himself or honest with others. He felt very bad, but he accepted him just as he is. And bluebird was so happy, and that's why he cried and cried. And so he was embraced by the Scops owl. Who in Buddhism, or what? Well, it is obvious. It is in our tradition, we call that kind of personality or presence or truth as Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha is one that doesn't really punish, doesn't judge, accepts you for who you are, how you are, and as long as you are willing to accept it, or Amida, him or her. So that's the, I see owl, this kind of very solid, huge bird who kind of embraces you. So one way to imagine when we say Namo Amida Butsu, the object is Amida, and Amida is like that. So there was one more that I thought doesn't come to mind. Maybe I'm having my senior moment. But I think I said enough, those 3 points, and they can really be of help to make our lives a little bit more meaningful, and meaningful not only to ourselves, but to others. And so finally, paramitas are means, the perfections, are means to help ourselves. Not only help ourselves, but we also learn from that, grow from that, becoming a wiser and more compassionate person, so you can then benefit people around you, especially your loved ones. We take our loved ones for granted, and so we should look around and know that your loved ones will not be there forever, be there for you forever. Buddhism, we emphasize change, relationships change. So hopefully you are in a very nice relationship and someone or in a family situation, but know that that situation will not be forever. So therefore, you cherish that moment every day, and do the best you can to have a very deep relationship. And so Buddhism helps us to live deeply. So 6 perfections at this O-Higan, the insight, those 3 things of love, that's right, love, compassion, which we saw in the owl, and then equality, treating people or creatures on an equal plane, which I found out when I was about to throw my slipper at Black Nose. These cats are all they're all the same. And lastly, the togetherness, oneness. I think that cuts through everything. The owl helping the bluebird, actually, when Mike came up to me and allowed me to pet him, I felt really happy, a feeling of togetherness. Even though he wasn't allowing me to pet him, but at that point he allowed me to be together with him. And so, those are the 3 principles or important things to keep in mind as you practice, especially the 6 paramitas, and not just now during the fall season or the O-Higan equinox time, but throughout the year. Thank you for listening and laughing at my jokes. Well, so-so. Which one did you like? The parachute or the hot dog one? Hot dog one. Yeah, hot dog one is good. Yeah. So please learn some of these, humor. When you say you're, going to a Buddhist temple and people ask you, well, what's Buddhism like, and you can tell these stories. And I'll close with one other one that's really more famous than the hot dog one. Okay? So, why couldn't the Buddha vacuum under the sofa? That's right, you're right. Because he had no attachments. And I used to tell this one whenever we had visitors to my church when I was a resident minister. And I was so pleased that, everyone laughs. Christian people, non-Christian people from the community, they all get it, that Buddha doesn't have attachments. So, and I created one for Joro Shinshu. Why did then Buddha turn to Shinran Shonin? Shinran, who was right next to him. Well, obviously, this is a joke. They wouldn't be together, Why did he ask Shinran to do something he himself couldn't do? Even he couldn't do. Because Shinran Shonin had lots of attachments. If you don't get this one, then you gotta study Shin Buddhism more deeply. Because he says, I'm the ignorant, foolish one. And so he had lots of attachments. So in this case, it's to his advantage, right? So actually, if you know that you have a lot of attachment, you'll be more of a humble person. If you really feel like, you have a lot of shortcomings, a humble person. Oh, one more, since we're on attachment. That's, they said I can speak, forever. But, okay, is it okay, just one more joke? Okay. All right. So when you send emails and you tell the other person, I'm going to have an attachment, okay? And then that person, and you forget, and that person reminds you, hey, you said you're going to have an attachment. And at that point, you say, well, I'm just trying to be a good Buddhist. No attachments. Thank you for listening, and best wishes to you. Namanda.